Welcome back to PennMicro. My first guitar lesson was all about how to hold the instrument properly, where my hand should be in three-dimensional space so I could access all the features of the instrument and play properly. If you're not holding it properly, it's not going to sound good. And that's exactly the same with microsurgery. Before me here, you see a jeweler's forceps, a microneedle driver, and a number 2 pencil. And these all have similarities. The grip of a pencil is very similar to how you should hold microsurgery instruments. If you take a look at this forceps, you'll see that it has a dowel in between the two tines. And the purpose of that dowel is to prevent the tips from scissoring. If you hold and you have an improper grip of your micro needle driver or of your forceps, the tips won't meet properly. You'll get some scissoring, and it'll make it much harder for you to be able to do what you need to do in terms of tying, grabbing suture. It'll cut the suture prematurely. If you're finding yourself having these problems, it's because you're holding the instrument wrong. Now, when you take a look at this particular jeweler's forceps, you'll be able to see that there's a fair bit of metal at the end of this forceps. The purpose of that is to act as a balance, to have this instrument properly balanced in your hand. And that's a critical part of how these instruments function. When you go to put this in your hand, the jeweler's forceps rests on two parts of your hand, the PIP joint of your middle finger and the MP joint of your index finger. And those two joints are basically what's going to allow you to keep this stable, as well as the balancing here. And you can see I can move my hand all the way around. That forceps isn't going anywhere. The purpose of my thumb and my index finger is to allow those tines to be activated, to bring those two together. But it's not to stabilize the jewelers. And that's critically important. Just like playing the guitar, microsurgery is all about intrinsic hand functions. Your intrinsic muscles are not particularly strong, and they will tire out. If you're activating them continuously to be able to hold the instrument, you will fatigue. And that's why it's really important. I'm not doing anything holding this jewelers. It's just resting comfortably in my hand. The same is true for a microneedle driver or micro scissors for that matter. It's most stable when held in the same position. The index finger and the thumb just activate the functional component. Now, when we talk about the grip and how to hold these, it's just like playing golf or any other sport. The grip is critical. In a jeweler's forceps or in a needle driver or scissors, you want to hold the instrument at the end of the burling. That's there for a reason. That extra bit of burling or grip on the jewelers tells you where you should hold it. You hold it right at the very end. Now, how you position your fingers is critical, and that's where the number 2 pencil comes in. We're going to talk a lot about writing instruments because actually in this course, because writing instruments are not only a good measure of how to grip your forceps and your needle driver, it's also a great way to practice. And a lot of this course is going to be about practicing even if you don't have instruments. You take a look at this number 2 pencil, I'm choking up on it much more than I would on a jeweler's forceps. But my grip, the 3 fingers together are critical. So let's talk a little bit about how to hold a pencil. Pencil is held exactly the same way that your jeweler's forceps or other microsurgery instruments should be held. 3 fingers, your index finger, your middle finger, and your thumb. The ring finger has nothing to do with holding a pencil properly. So resting on your middle finger, it's the ulnar aspect of your index finger that's touching the top tine, and it's the radial aspect of your thumb that's touching the bottom tine. And that's what allows this to come together. The vectors of the push of all of these different areas of your index and your thumb are what allows this to triangulate to keep a stable tip. And so it's really, really important that you're not using the pads of your thumb. I see this all the time in my trainees. The pads of your index finger or the pad of your thumb. If you bring that together, the vectors are not in alignment. So how do you check whether you're holding it properly or not? Mark up a marking pen just like this. And then grip it properly. So I'm going to basically rest it on my PIP joint and bring my thumb and my index. And that's basically going to leave a little stamp of where on my skin I'm touching the writing implement. And you take a look. You got a mark on your middle finger. I've got a mark, a nice clean mark actually, on the radial aspect of my thumb and the ulnar aspect of my index finger. When I bring these two, all 3 together, you're going to see that that's where I basically had this. And then that's how you check your grip.